Welcome to the Coach Dave Love podcast with NBA shooting coach Dave Love and your host, Matt Robertson, exploring the cutting edge of evidence-based shooting development in basketball today, from shooting form to skill acquisition to shot metrics. This is the Coach Dave Love podcast.
Welcome to the Coach Dave Love podcast. I am your host, Matt Robertson, and with me today, as always, NBA shooting coach Dave Love. Dave, we also have a super special guest today for the second time, first repeat guest. I want to jump right into this because I'm super excited. I think the episode where Chris Oliver came the last time was the one I learned the most in a 60-minute window, and I'm hoping we can run back a portion of that today. What do you think, Dave?
I'm super fired up because, and I think I said this to Chris in text privately, but Matt and I referenced the whole part only if you need to line that you wisdom dropped on us. We reference that like every third episode. So great to have you back, Chris. How are things?
Awesome to be here and honored to be your first repeat guest. How cool is that?
I think I was your first repeat guest too. So it
Absolutely.
seems only fair to, and I didn't realize that until just before we started recording here.
Well, I hope you're both getting the response. I mean, people love talking about shooting. I mean, that's one thing that's consistent in all basketball through all my 30 years in basketball. People love to talk about shooting. And when I post videos of my 13-year-old or my 11-year-old shooting, people like to criticize shooters and be very critical of especially young shooters. And, I'm fascinated to get into this conversation and kind of like people's perception of what kind of shooting is, what coaching is, what all these things are. And man, just coaches, be open-minded, suspend judgment, and be curious. And let's have a great conversation.
Chris,
Okay,
yeah, go ahead, Dave. Sorry, you're good.
The idea behind the episode, Chris, came from a text that you and I had, where I think you made a comment of it's as tough for coaches to break habits as it is for players to break habits, and I know that was and still is absolutely true for me as I've gone through this journey from a very traditional block practice shooting coach to trying to be more aware of these ideas. And so I wanted to kind of see if can we give some advice to the coaches that, whether they're shooting coaches, whether they're skills coaches, whether they're head coaches, who feel like they want to move in the direction of skill acquisition principles, but don't necessarily know how to do that.
Well, number one, it's hard. It's hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's really hard to change. It's really hard to, invest in your learning. And I mean, that, especially for fully formed adults, which we feel like we're beyond school. We don't have to learn the same way. We don't have to invest in our learning the same way. So I know there's that kind of feeling, and we've all had that. And certainly we don't have to learn in the same way we did in school, but to learn this stuff and to get good at this stuff, you have to invest in it, and it's hard. And the one thing that keeps coming back for me is, and I use this example with people all the time, and it's just a fascinating conversation, is the iPhone. The original iPhone came out in what year? Does anyone know here?
2008?
2007, close, Matt. Yeah, 2007. Like, think about that. And how much has the iPhone changed? And how much has our ability to use the iPhone changed? And yet, people think coaching hasn't changed since 2007 and before that. And that's the weird conversation that I get into. The same person that's talking to me about AI and the beauty of AI will not get beyond the fact that I should still use three-man weave in my practices because I used it back in 2007. To me, there's just a survivorship bias that exists that is really hard to overcome. So I'm excited to dive into some ideas for your coaches to be able to kind of practically and actionably attack some of this to be able to kind of further your learning.
And so, Chris, I asked you this just before we started recording, but I think this is an important question. I assumed that you were at some point a quote unquote traditional coach that would have done all the traditional things that probably include too much block practice and too much three-man weave. So take me through your answer to that. Were you at one point?
Not completely, but yes. I mean, certainly I did drills. My mentors were drill-based coaches. My coaches that I played for were drill-based coaches. I was very fortunate that at 25, I did a master's degree at the University of Victoria and did the Coaching Institute. So I did my level 4 certification out there. And then I was exposed to people that were presenting ideas around random practice and decision training and different things like that. Joan Vickers, which we referenced last time. So I got exposed to that pretty young, and that really changed my mindset about what it was. And at that time, I think game sense instead of game based or games approach was kind of the terminology that was coming out of the Australian Institute of Sport about the approach to teaching the game while they play the game. And also, Matt and Dave, I mean, fully aware of this. I had low reps, no pressure reps to be able to develop as a coach. And that's where I think coaches, an actionable idea is to try and find some of those reps where you can try this stuff without pressure. Like we refer to this sometimes dealing with the elite athlete, that they never have a chance to do something where they're not being recorded. That's really hard to develop in a not safe space. So I think coaches need to find those safe spaces to be able to try some of these things. But early on, it resonated with me because when I was a college assistant, I got to ask great questions. I was always a curious learner. I learned very on, like, I'm an introvert. I don't like talking. So I learned that if I ask questions, I don't have to talk. So I feel like that's been a great strength of mine, is that I've learned how to kind of get people to talk instead of me having to talk. How fun. So I asked players questions, and the players constantly told me, hey, when are we going to play basketball in practice? That was a theme that came over and over. When are we going to play basketball in practice? Then to me, I said, something's missing. And to me, that just clarified it, is like, what do the players want? What helps the players get better? They want to play basketball.
And so, Chris, you mentioned the low risk reps. What did that look like for you in the beginning? Like, I know my version of that, and I'll share that after. But I'd love to hear what were your what were your high risk reps, and then how did you find and what were your low risk reps?
Probably for my first few years of coaching, I coached as many teams as possible. And I had some good mentors that told me, just go coach. You love coaching, go coach. And in Canada at the time, you could coach as many teams as you wanted. I mean, club teams, junior basketball teams, there's JV teams. And then I started to get more high pressure reps when I became the varsity coach of the senior girls team at St. Mary's High School in Hamilton, which is like a provincial championship contender. So that became real for me. But before I did, I was coaching the JV team there. But the JV team, like, again, like if any girl was good, they're already playing on the varsity team. So it gave me those reps kind of in that environment to be able to try some stuff and say, okay, this one didn't work. They're throwing it off the walls and this is crazy. This is too crazy. Okay, this one really didn't engage them enough. And all those reps, like I think I coached 6 or 7 teams within a year for about 4 or 5 straight years. So that's what I mean. And I understand not every coach can do that, but I was going for it. And for me, that's the case. But I think about, how can a coach create these reps? Well, off season, in season, postseason, you have 5 games until you play your next, or 5 practices till you play your next game. Use the first 2 practices. Like, just try a few things, do a few things, get outside your comfort zone. Remember that all of this is not just about player development and team development. It's about coach development too. So you've got to take some risks, and there will be rewards.
So when you look at this, and again, Dave, you're talking about people asking, where do I start or how do I get started? Chris, you talk about shortening the learning curve from a period of time. You're still getting the same amount of reps in, but you're doing 7 teams at once. And you took 8 months to fast forward, 7 years of development or whatever the math looks like, but like shortening the development curve, that's incredible.
So I always felt, and again, I don't know where all this came from, but it was just a mindset on my part that I heard very early on in my coaching career, you're a young coach. And I didn't want that bias to exist, because I wanted it not to be about chronological age. I wanted it to be about the number of experiences. And that's where I tell players, I tell coaches, now, players, I'm not saying play more games, but I'm just saying you can increase your exposures. You can speed up your development by practicing more in a game-like way for a player, but it's the same advantage for a coach. The more that you coach the game in practice, the better the game coach you're going to be. And I'm sure you guys deal with that question all the time. It's like, how do I become a better game coach for a new coach? And I say, well, I watch your practice. You're not coaching the game in practice, so you're not getting enough reps. So you can speed up your reps in that way, Matt. And that's a great connection. I'm glad you brought that up.
whole part, only if I need it, also applies to coaching as well. That breaks my brain to think about, but I love it.
But honestly, it simplifies the process for you too, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. It
Like,
really
Matt, how
does.
much time did you spend on, like, oh, this season plan, this weekly plan, this daily plan, this? We go play basketball and we figure out what we need to work on. And it's been interesting. I'm dealing with some really high level people. Like, I have to go run a clinic in Paris. So I'm dealing with some important people and they want to know my plan. And I literally tell them over 5 practices, I tell them, listen, first practice, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with 4-on-4, full court, back and forth, fast break league. I'm going to teach 3 principles of play. And I'll be honest, guys, I'm going to figure it out from there. And that blows their brain because they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, you want me to write it all down? I'll write something down for you, but I'm just going to tell you, I'm probably not going to go exactly there because the players are going to tell me what they need. And that takes some confidence. I get that as a coach, but that's truly what evolves in all practices is the players tell you what you need instead of us being predetermining what they need.
It really, their attitude, whoever the leadership is who needs all the plans, that is a microcosm, a reflection of the current coaching culture. My enduring vision of my high school coach who coached me pro and coached against me in university is running down the court with a practice plan tucked in his pocket, and we're sticking to that freaking practice plan to the second, come hell or high water. And that's my enduring vision. And he's an awesome guy. And I learned a ton from him as a human, but old school coach. And that is a reflection of that mentality, I think.
When do you guys think basketball analytics, when do you think that really took hold? Like, do you have even an idea?
Oh,
like Rio Grande Valley G League is, like 2013,
probably
14,
like
somewhere there.
probably at first, like really kind of to get traction, maybe in 2010, but really only over the last 10 years has it become this widely acceptable. Do you hear the level of math that basketball coaches are talking now? Like, it's absolutely incredible. But how many of them poo-pooed this? How many of them poo-pooed this at the beginning? And now there's NBA teams. There's literally NBA teams that are following a constraint-led approach in their player development, multiple teams. And I'm telling you, coaches, it's time. It's time. Get rid of your biases, get on board. And we'll give you some more actionable ideas here because, again, it's not easy. It's not easy, but you invest in it. And the original intent behind Basketball Immersion was it was a full year membership because I didn't want someone to buy it and not invest in their learning. Now, we know that doesn't always happen, and I've gone monthly and I've gone 6 months trying to accommodate people. But literally, that's my ideal, is that you're a year invested in your learning because it literally takes that long.
Chris, one of the things that I've been thinking about, and I'll never do this, like I have no desire to do this, but if I was forced to, and I was forced to become a head coach, I'd only be qualified to do that for 12-year-olds. I think that first practice, based on what I've learned from you, we would start by, okay, everybody line up, jump ball, and we're playing basketball. And then figure out what the problems are and see if I can figure out a way to teach that problem while they're playing, or teach to that problem while they're playing the game. For those young groups, I feel like this is even more important, that stay away from drills and just teach basketball. I would teach shooting within a game if I could, and I'd love for to figure out how to make little adjustments so that we can get more reps of shooting. And essentially, that's create small-sided games, is it not?
Yeah, it is. It is. And look, you're absolutely right. Like, we play these games to 1 to start practice, and any new gym I go into, it's literally what you're saying. Like, I throw the ball to a team, they play 5-on-5 till there's a score. Then new players sub in and keep coming in. And it's literally that. And then I start teaching principles of play. Hey, space, here's what's, and I just ask a question. How can you create more space than what you're creating right now? And you coach them while they're playing, and you just attack it that way. It's amazing how quickly they get it because, again, it makes sense because they're seeing it in the context. And I get this question all the time. New players need to learn this, and this before that. What? Like, they don't even understand. You teach them a pivot and do it in a pivoting drill. They have no idea where they're using it anyways. So just start in the game and then say, hey, here's how you can get out of this problem. And that's where I refer to what basketball IQ is. The easiest way for people to understand it is problem solving. So how are you developing your players' ability to solve a problem in a practice? And, again, it seems like we're just like a game-based. No, we're okay. Like you do a drill, that's fine. But the drill has to connect something back to the game. And usually you start, for your example, the game, then the drill, then back to the game. And that's exactly what I'll do in any gym I go into in the world. I went to Columbus High School, like the Boozer twins, like incredible players and all that. Like how many gyms in the world could somebody go into and run a practice in the middle of their season for 2 hours over 2 days, 2 different practices, and just teach and know that what you're teaching is going to help them regardless of whether I know what their system is? Well, Dave, how do we know that? Matt, how do we know that? Because I'm just teaching principles to play. There's not one coach in the world that doesn't want to teach spacing, advantage, and shot selection. And then, of course, what's the defense? The opposite of that. And to me, it is really that simple.
How much time would you say you spend actually teaching before you get into a game? Like, what's that ratio look like? Are you spending more time at the beginning and then the next practice it's less and less and less? Or what does that look like for you, Chris?
Okay, parents, we got to get back to explaining to kids what coaching is. Like, I know I'm going around this a different way, Matt, but man, it drives me bonkers. I can't tell you how many girls in particular, because I've been around the girl space with my daughters, but I coach boys too. And kids come into the gym and all they expect from a coach is a coach to validate them and tell them what a wonderful shining object they are. And when I coach them right away, and I'm not mean, I'm not throwing anything at them. I'm literally just, hey, you can do better. And that's what coaching is. So let's get back to explaining to players as coaches, as parents, as people, what coaching is, because coaching should be valued and it's not valued anymore because what people want is just to be told they're a shiny object. And that makes it really hard to do what you're saying, Matt, which is literally, how much do I teach in a practice? I teach an incredible amount in practice. I stop everything. It's to the point that it's annoying for players that aren't used to it. But the goal is that we're playing 2 hours or an hour and a half of basketball, 5-on-5, 4-on-4, whatever it is. And I'm going to coach you while you play, but I'm going to stop you and make you aware of possibilities. I'm not telling you the answers, but I'm saying, hey, have you thought of this? Do you see this? Is this possible here? And then I'm going to hold you accountable to the things that we feel are important, which is those principles of play. So yes, I'm coaching it. I'm teaching a lot. Pretty much, early on in learning, it's probably too much for kids. But that intensity of it is what helps them grow and helps them develop. And back to your original point, Matt, that's what speeds up the process for all of them.
Chris, I find, and I'd be curious to your opinion, the times that I have attempted to be the most organized, I'm doing that almost entirely for my own ego. And it probably even limits the player. And we think professional coach, to your point about walking into Paris, professional coach, the more organized you are, the more you have a plan, the better. And I don't think it's true.
I don't think it's true either, because I think the more you plan, and back to Matt's high school example, the more you have planned, the more you limit your players. Like the more you limit them from coming up with their own possibilities and their own solutions. That's such a huge thing, isn't it? And I want to afford players the opportunity instead of limit their opportunity. And that's just, it's just, again, mind blown for people sometimes to even think that way. Oh no, I got to teach them all I know. Well, no, how about just afford them the opportunity to explore what they know before you teach them what you know? And I'm not saying don't teach them what you know, but don't do it first.
Can we go through some ways that like tangibly we see that happen? Like in the shooting realm, it's teach shooting a specific way, try to fit everybody into this box, and don't allow exploration, when ultimately we should be encouraging exploration around. That's my realm. In what ways do you see coaches kind of limiting that accidentally?
Well, again, they go in with their preconceived notion of what somebody should do based on their biases, not based on the player. right? And that's the thing. The player tells us and reveals everything. And examples, I mean, when you were working with Bazelis with G League team, and I visited you with the Ignite, and I'm like, literally, when I got a chance to just be on the floor and rebound for him for 1 second, all it was show me something that you do. That's all I asked him. Show me something that you work on. And he started to do these unique 1-footers and some differential learning type of stuff. And it was just like, it was giving him the chance to show me and explore what he does and show me. And then I said, hey, think about this. And I didn't really do much there. It's all you there, but it was just fun to be able to be in that environment. So I go into this, and I say this for team practice, for individual practice, whatever it is. I will never say do this. I'll say try this. Hey, try this. So for shooting, for example, I'll just say, hey, try this. Okay, how does that feel? Does it feel better? Does that feel worse? And then obviously, always a condition, give them, it's always going to be worse because you've never done it before. But we want to make sure it works with you, not against you. And I think that's another inherent part of coaching that we've got to do a better job of, is explaining to players that, look, I mean, our goal is to help you be the best version of yourself. Like, I know, and again, parents and other people bias all the time players and thinking, oh, that coach has it out for you. Like, what coach in the world really is trying to like screw an individual player so that they're worse than better? Like, let's get beyond that. That whole rhetoric needs to go as well. I know we're going down a tangent, but Dave, you'll bring us back.
Oh, I'm not the one to bring back from a tangent. I'm the one that takes us further down the tangent. But okay, so how do you find coaches accidentally limit players? Like if they created a 3-on-3 small side game around shaking out a DHO, what mistakes could be made by coaches, and what would you encourage them to do instead?
Starts with too many musts in your coaching rather than possibilities in your coaching. And I don't think there's very much. I mean, the non-negotiables is like a word that obviously gets thrown around on my podcast quite a bit. And I really do try and avoid it somewhat because I don't really believe in non-negotiables. Like, we're humans. I mean, there's just literally very few things that are non-negotiable. So I would say it in coaching world, I talk about musts and possibilities. So just don't give them all these musts. Okay, do the 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 DHO type of small-sided game. Do it without any information other than, okay, this is the drill. Start with the drill and then just watch it as a coach. Let them explore it and start to recognize what are they doing and what are they not doing, and then step in and say, listen, okay, let's create a constraint here on this handoff. Probably a defensive constraint on this handoff. You must chase or go under, right? No switching. So then we learn to see some different coverage solutions. Again, the power of anything is not the 1-on-0 action. The power of anything is the decision. So we're trying to develop that.
You add that constraint to force exploration around the thing that you're not seeing enough of.
We're trying not to limit them. We're trying to afford them. But we do sometimes have to limit possibilities to afford them the chance to see the possibilities. So that's, instead of eating at the whole buffet, I think we've given this example before, like they're only going to have salad and pasta in this drill, right? But then we come back to the drill. We don't want to stay there. We want to keep going back and forth between the whole buffet and then limiting things. And that's the idea of a small-sided game. A small-sided game solves a problem. Any drill you do should solve a problem that is a game problem, right? And that's where I'm like 3-man weaves, zigzag drills, some of these kind of rote memorization, just repetition drill. They don't solve the game problem. The game problem is passing the ball up the floor versus defense in transition. There's no part of 3-man weave that solves that. None. Zero. Sorry, there's nothing. There's no argument in favor of that. So that's why I'm saying skip that. A real improvement for any coach is to skip any of the fluff. Any of the fluff you do. Why are you doing it? It doesn't help your players improve, and it doesn't help your team win. So play 5-on-5, use small-sided games with constraints to be able to shape specific things, and then go back to the 5-on-5 and let them explore it within the 5-on-5. That's kind of what coaching is to me.
Fellas, we've been going here for about 25 minutes already. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back after this.
Hey there, basketball fans. I'm NBA shooting coach Dave Love, and I've got exciting news just for you. Introducing my exclusive, free basketball shooting newsletter. It's packed with insights and techniques straight from the hardwood. Have you ever wondered how NBA players improve their shots? Or how you could get to the next level whether you're a college player, a coach, or a budding youth player? My newsletter brings all this and more directly to your inbox. Each edition is a deep dive into the world of basketball shooting. I'll share some of the tips and ideas that I use with my NBA clients, tailored for every level of the game. But wait, there's more. Subscribers receive exclusive monthly discounts on my online products. From training videos to personalized coaching sessions, you'll get it all for a fraction of the price. And the best part of all, it's absolutely free to join. So what are you waiting for? Elevate your game and join a community of passionate players and coaches from around the globe. Signing up is easy. Just visit CoachDaveLove.com.
All right, welcome back. Generally what we do after a timeout is we draw up an ATO, and we put up 24 up on the thought clock in my office, and Coach Dave has to concisely give us a look at something important that we talked about in the last segment. Dave, are you prepared for this?
I'd love both of us to do this, and I'll go first. So Chris has he needs less time to think, but just to get a sense of what we do. The thing I want coaches to get out of that segment is a lot of times our organization makes us feel good about the job that we've done, but it didn't actually help the player. And don't feel bad about being less organized and going with the flow a little bit more around what they actually need, not what you predetermined they needed 2 hours before practice. I don't know if I got that in 24 seconds, but
listen, we got it in under the wire. We beat the buzzer. We knocked out a 3. Chris, you're on the clock.
Yeah. Play basketball and coach the game while they play basketball. And the game itself will reveal what you need to work on. And then use a small-sided game to be able to, again, narrow down those possibilities. And, I guess just be open-minded and be curious, suspend judgment. I mean, that constantly sticks with me.
Great. Also got a good look. I do want to kind of piggyback on that, Chris, if you're okay with that.
Please.
For me, as, again, your average Joe, average coach, to do this, there is a lot of fear involved with this approach because, okay, so inevitably you let players play in practice and it starts to get sloppy, whether it's after 3 minutes or after 7 minutes or after 12 minutes. Am I confident that I can identify the thing that is sloppy to work on and appropriately how to work on that? Like, do you come in with a sort of, I mean, you obviously have a catalog of short-sighted games that you can turn to. So for somebody like me without the catalog and that's fearful to kind of start this on the fly, how can I prepare these short-sighted games? Is it just like, am I just on the YouTube rabbit hole? Am I in Basketball Immersion? Like, what does that look like,
Well, I mean, definitely Basketball Immersion solves all your problems, but
That's right.
Not simpler than that. Like, I think we think too complex. Like, really what a small-sided game is literally just the game, a mini version of the game. So let's say you're a team that runs a lot of European ball screens. So you get the ball to the top, you have a 2-side, you dribble towards the 2-side, that player cuts, and a player comes to a handoff. That's a tradition. Well, how can we make that more conceptual? How can we make that a 3-sided game, a 3-on-3 small-sided game? Okay, coach enters to the top, play 3-on-3, live, play. Like, all your small-sided games, think about this, is if I create an offensive small-sided game, I'm also creating a defensive small-sided game. So it's two-way coaching. And I think we complicate the game by thinking these are silos. These are separate things. They're all together. It's not a silo here, a silo, and then put them together. It's like they're all together anyways. And we actually complicate it by separating them. So whatever system you want to run on offense or defense, just break it down. Break down drills, obviously, that's nothing new. But that's your small-sided game. And then find a way to use constraints, whether it's a score or some types of things within it, a task constraint that we must do this before this, or it's not live until this happens. And then we play out of that. So 3-on-3 dribble handoff, we must cut, we must replace, and then live from there. And then just let them play 3-on-3 live.
Maddie, in what way do you in what way do things get sloppy? Like, you kind of use that word, and I think that's a common description of it got sloppy. What would be going wrong when you saw it getting sloppy?
Yeah, so just like the general few examples are we start to leak out a little bit on offense, and we're starting to throw long long passes in transition, and our transition defense isn't really getting back, so that it becomes more of like a foot race situation. Coming off screens gets sloppy. There's too much space between the screener and the cutter. Just those sort of bigger items. Rarely is it like, oh, we missed this by this much and that's why it's sloppy. It's big items, like very apparent items.
Yeah, I mean, the Messi's normal. Sorry, Dave, just to cut you off. But I mean, the getting back in transition and the offense taking advantage of that. I mean, that's a good thing. That should be coached in the game, and that's two way. So it's a good thing for your offense. It's a bad thing for your defense, and basketball is a game of opposites. So that's a really hard thing for some coaches to understand. If you have a kind of a inherent bias towards one side of the ball, the screening thing. I know, Dave, it's our favorite word, micro skill. The micro skill, I mean, yeah, there's a complexity to that. But at what age does that really matter? Like, that's my point. Like, I think that's coach speak, almost like, oh, we're really smart because we know you should get to the shoulder. But half the time the defense is so bad, honestly, getting to the shoulder does not matter. So it's like, at what point does it matter that is something that I'm saying, stop it, coach it in the game, emphasize it. But at what point are you really, really that concerned about that? And I've given that example on closeouts. Like, the things we teach on closeout is just insane. Like, we've made closeouts so complicated, but only for the drill. Because I've never seen a coach really coach a closeout and saying, hey, listen, your pinky's in the wrong place on the closeout. In the game, I'm going to sub you. No, it's always the decision that gets you subbed, that you close out long or you close out short. So it's like we complicate things by getting all these micro skills that, NBA's guys, maybe micro skills matter, but for most players, it's just that big picture.
If I can oversimplify for a second, like I think for a lot of like the middle school, high school coaches, if they saw it was getting sloppy, our passing is terrible. And so I think a lot of coaches would then go, and I'll go to an extreme, say, okay, everybody line up on the sides of the lane line, and we're throwing chest passes back and forth because we're working on your passing. Your passing has been terrible. And what we're just trying to get across is that, no, it doesn't need to go to that extreme. You need to find the challenge. It's not that they can't throw a chest pass. It's with all the other things going on, it's challenging to hit a target sometimes. So keep the things going on and increase the number of reps of your passes by saying, okay, constraint is now you're not allowed to put the ball on the floor. And it's no dribble 3-on-3 or whatever it is. And we're increasing the reps of the thing that's causing a problem in a challenging environment.
Even when a coach says our passing is bad, what you really mean is your decisions are bad. Like 90% of the time, it's a decision. It has nothing to do with the technique, to your point. So I'm absolutely agreeing with everything that you're just saying.
And from a ball handling perspective, I watched a trainer do a workout with one of the greatest ball handlers in the world. And they did 10 reps of each dribble move on air. And I said at the end of the workout, Coach, is the hard part of this his ability to do the dribble move, or is the hard part his ability to recognize which dance step he should be using in each situation? And you've removed the music and taught him a dance
Hard
step,
to dance
and now
without the music.
And yeah, it's like keep as much of the game as you possibly can, and I think it's okay to simplify, but I don't think we need to simplify as much as we.
But that's accepted. That's accepted. Like the crap that gets liked on social media by coaches, like 1,000 coaches like the on-air drill, and I'm like, what are we doing? Like, we're still stuck in 2007 using the original iPhone, thinking that think about how much has been researched. Stuff was already present back then, but think about since 2007, how much has been researched about teaching, how we teach, and yet we still teach the way we did in 2007. Like, it just, because again, we have all these people that are just not willing to even look at it differently. And I know I'm on a soapbox, but there's a better way. There's a better way. And it's proven. Like, again, I'll tell you the feedback from one of the highest level players I've ever worked with. The feedback when I just did something simple like BDT with them is, I've never had to think like that before in a workout. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, one of arguably the best players in his age group in the world had never had to think in a workout.
Decision-based training, DBT?
BDT, basketball decision training, tons of variations, but it's literally just an on-air workout and being able to add stuff. But I mean, I've added stuff, like if you look on YouTube now, we've done some perturbation stuff. I've done some stuff around scanning, because an NBA coach asked me, how do you do scanning in a one-on-one workout? And I'm like, I'm doing it. So there's really smart NBA people that are going to be way ahead of other people. And that's why I say about coaches, they're going to be really smart coaches ahead of other people, because they're starting to adapt these ideas or adopt these ideas around, how do I make it more mindful in a workout than mindless in a workout? In a mindless workout, per your example, Dave, that's a complete waste of time. I'm sorry, that's a waste of time for that player. Just a waste. But look, they're successful. Oh, look, they're great. Oh, the team wins, or they've always done it this way. I'm like, sure. But what happens if you had changed your mindset and you're still using the 2007 iPhone? Instead, you're using the 2024 iPhone. Like, that's what I don't get about people not connecting these. And I use technology only because it's the easiest thing to relate to people for some reason.
So, Chris, let's go back to that theoretical trainer, and let's imagine we're that person who realizes
it's not a theoretical trainer. It is 90% of the trainers in the world, 90% of the coaches in the world. I'm sorry, it is. It is. Yep. It really is. It's still that far removed. Like, I am a niche. Dave, you're a niche. It's crazy.
But that person who now listening to this realizes they're doing 10 reps of the same dribble move all the time. What practical advice would you give them so that they can start to break that habit?
Okay, this is what I came for. I really thought about this. So I got a few things, but let's go through one and then we can talk about it if you don't mind.
Yep.
Start by identifying your coaching ego. Man, recognize the habits, the biases, the assumptions that drive your coaching decisions. That's literally it. What are your biases in your coaching ego? Your coaching ego, if you can't get beyond your coaching ego, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. I am absolutely okay. I was in a gym today with my daughter in the morning, and there's this famous trainer with lots of social media followers on the other side doing on-air work with player. And my daughter is literally screwing up, messing up, getting frustrated, struggling. And, I'm cool with that, man. I actually and I kind of, she's not completely there sometimes, because, the mind of a 13-year-old daughter is like a little bit insecure still, as it should be, not a fully formed human. But it's like, for me, I got to get beyond my ego and say, I know this works, and this is uncomfortable to see sometimes, but there you go. So get beyond your ego. What are the things that are keeping you stuck in your ego?
The first thing I would recommend to a player, exactly what you said earlier, find a low stakes environment where you can learn. Like, mine came in during COVID, where all of a sudden I had no options to train high level players, and I had a couple of people that I could sneak into a gym with occasionally, and I just, I am going to now try and avoid these 3 habits. I'm going to try and avoid shoot 5 from this spot, move to this spot. I'm going to try to avoid 10 reps on this side, and then let's go over to the other side of the floor and get 10 reps of the same thing on that. I can't do that. And so my first thing was, try and move them to a different spot on the floor between every rep. That's if I can do nothing else, I can at least move them 3 feet to the right and 2 feet back. And just getting comfortable saying, like, I'm not going to script out like it's a bodybuilding workout, the number of reps from the spots on the floor, and I'm going to try and adjust something.
In my journey back to playing, Dave, I've told you I've been doing some workouts with a couple of my players. So, Chris, I'm an assistant coach for a university team. I got invited to play very semi-professional basketball in the city that I live in at my advanced age, which is hilarious. It's going to be awesome, but I have much work to go to get there. So I'm working it with a couple of the players, and I'm doing the workout. And one of the things they said to me, which, Dave, is a testament to you, is they said it really seems like we're focused on quality over quantity in these workouts. And I was like, I think that's quite an insightful thing for a player who's in the middle of his workouts. But from a stakes situation, I can bring all this, A, because I'm involved, like I'm doing the workouts myself, but B, we're in between semesters. We have 5 weeks where there are literally no stakes, and our entire goal is to like, yeah, we can get better, but we're trying to stay in shape and we're trying to get reps and what have you. The focus on quality over quantity, I think, for me, listening to you guys talk, is an identifier of we can move on to the next drill because we hit, we got 7 great reps of this or whatever the number ended up being, and we probably can move along, right?
Well, and for me, I want to say, like, the quality does not correlate to makes. The quality to me correlates to the time spent exploring around, in my case, a more optimal way of doing things. Usually my players are far removed from a workable solution, and so we need to explore around more optimal, but it's not, the quality is not coming from doing it perfectly every side. It's appropriately exploring.
To that point, to Matt's point, to your point, Dave, like, how about we leave workouts and now we start to ask players, how many problems did you solve? I've literally, look, I tell my daughter, she said, what are we going to work on today? I said, literally, there's nothing I can throw at you at this point that you can't adapt to and do. So what are we working on? How about you believing in yourself more? You having a better mindset, right? That's the stuff that really does separate people. And that's where she struggles. And that's okay. That's part of the journey. That's part of the process. But man, every day solving problems. And I've seen your workouts, Dave, last year. Like, you have players solving problems, right? You have players solving problems. Okay, I have to shoot like this. I have to do this before I shoot. It's not just this rote, okay, rep. Forget about reps. Like, they're going to get enough reps. If you're with them for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, they're going to get enough reps. But again, that's the whole point of all this. So I was just thinking as you guys were talking, it was brilliant, by the way. Okay, here's a cheat. I'm going to give this to you. Everyone, coach, write it down. Act as a basketball coaching expert with an extensive skill acquisition research background and tell me the advantages and disadvantages of fill in the blanks. That is your AI prompt. Whatever AI you use, I use them all. But literally just use that prompt and it'll start to tell you, because my next point for coaches is you need to seek out evidence. Actively seek out information, research, or coaching methods that challenge your beliefs. You're not going to change if you don't challenge your beliefs, right? And we don't want to go too down. There's people that believe in stuff, and that's fine. You should believe in stuff. But there's also things that we have to research from both perspectives. And that's the thing. Like, if I only get, and we know this, I know this more than you guys living in America, you only get your information from one news source, you've got a bias, right? And that's what a lot of people are doing. Well, okay, the college coach does this. The college coach does this. The college coach does this. Well, they have no low pressure stakes to be able to learn and explore. And I give credit to the ones that I've worked with that have. And there's some that are really, really figuring it out. But man, they're not your role model. Your role model is you. You're the role model. You want to learn, go explore, look at contradictory things, use that AI prompt and keep typing in things, because there's a better way to teach, to your point, on-air dribbling. You don't have to do it anymore. Again, I'm using this. I wouldn't use it on mine because I'm too political maybe, but it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time to do it.
What would you do instead?
Decision. Yeah.
What would you do instead?
The hard part's not dribbling. The hard part's the decision.
So you're now a trainer who realized they're doing a butt ton of
on-air shooting, on-air dribbling, on-air this,
yeah,
on-air that.
Yeah, on-air dribbling, specifically that. What would you do instead, Chris?
So I would be there. So, Matt's dribbling, I'm arm length away from him. I'm reaching, I'm doing some different things that are causing perturbations. That's a disruption in what he's doing, because that's what a defender does. And then I'll step back or I'll flip my hips, which are the basketball decision training cues, and they get to shoot. After every rep, they shoot. They shoot. So there's some type of stimulus. So it's guided defense to be able to go. Okay, or it's adding some type of scanning, some different information. So Matt's dribbling somewhere around the 3-point line, I just say, go crazy. I'm not prescribing anything to do. I'm just like, go crazy for a little bit. Go crazy. Keep your feet as wide as possible and dribble and go crazy. And then I'm going to be somewhere on the court. And when I put up my hands, you have to pass to me. I'm going to pass right back, then go crazy again, blah, blah, blah. And then my hands down, shoot, type of thing. You're just putting information in them, distracting information, visual stimuli. If there's no distracting information and no visual stimuli, then we're not triggering perception and decision, which leads to obviously executing the skill in a game. So they're just working on executing the skill without the perception and without the decision. So as much as possible, add those two things to it.
The thing that I think, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that I've taken from you, or learned from you, and a phrase that I say all the time now that I'm pretty sure came directly from you is tying actions together. That when I work on shooting, I try to never work on shooting stationary. Of course, there are times where that happens. But as quickly as possible, I'm trying to tie the skill of movement and stopping and controlling movement to the skill of shooting a basketball, because those happen together in a game. And if they do that well, then as soon as possible, I'm trying to tie the skill of catching a basketball to the situation where they're moving, to the situation where they're shooting. And then, like, what are they reacting to? What are they how much of the things that occur in a game can I add to this situation and still have them explore around that idea that I'm trying to get them to explore around? And tying it together is the phrase that really resonated with me as a coach.
I love that.
And it came from you.
Perfect example. Look, anytime you prescribe and tell them to just do this one thing, we are taking away, and you can research this, look into biology, but human biology is all about adaptation, right? Thermoregulation, immune systems, cognitive flexibility, cultural and social adaptation, like all these things are part of being a human. So we're taking all these things away from a player. Like we're taking things that are inherently human away from them if we're not affording them the chance to be adaptive, per your example, which is tying things together and then figuring it out and being adaptive. Like that's ultimately the goal here. Like how many shots, I mean, LaMelo Ball, that might be an extreme example, but how many shots is he shooting? Because he has permission, freedom to do it, that literally he's never practiced and repped, right? Like people don't understand that part of it. Like I see it all the time with my daughters, how many shots they shoot in games where, oh, well, we never rep that exact thing in that exact spot in that exact way. Of course we didn't. Nobody can. You can't rep everything. You got to be adaptive. And that's a big thing to kind of get coaches to understand too, that adaptation. Yes, we want to do reps without repetitions, but we want to put them in adaptive situations where they have to figure it out. And, we use the word micro skill, but look, as coaches, we've emphasized this over and over again. Experiment with these micro changes. Look, you don't have to go all in, per Matt's example, like where we just say, okay, the next practice is fully game-based. No, do a few things and pepper it in, but we're going to play, we're going to play 5-on-5 at the beginning, and then we're going to do some of the drills, and then we're going to play 5-on-5 again, then we're going to do some of the drills. That's fine. Pepper it in. You don't have to go all in right away, but that's a big thing. And trust me, your players, get feedback from your players. Your players will enjoy it. Your players will enjoy it.
One of the things that I peppered in was your idea. I think one of the first things I learned from you was, okay, hands up, got to put the ball on the floor. Hands down is your cue to shoot.
Yep.
Like you're essentially, I'm mimicking the defender. If they have their hands up, there's no shot there. If their hands are down, you shoot it. And incorporating that within form shooting. And that was like, to your point that you just made, as I started to explore these ideas, it was a cautious exploration. And each workout, just trying to add a new thing and being okay with saying to the player, do you find this is helpful? Or how can we change this? If I knew something, I missed the mark as a coach in some way, to say to the player, hey, how would you adjust this to make this more beneficial? And I think that earns trust with the player as opposed to loses trust.
Well, which is a great point. Your players are active participants in your team, and in their learning and in our learning and in their development, our development, they're all active participants in that. And we kind of, again, look, coaching is holding them accountable to doing things that help them improve and help the team win and help them individually get better, for sure. But at the end of the day, it's also like they're active participants. So it's not even asking them, hey, did that work? But it's more like, how did that feel? Hey, was that a little bit different? Did that trigger something different? To your point, it's like, hey, did that make you aware that you weren't actually dribbling when you were dribbling and you weren't actually shooting until you were shooting? Because that's really the whole point, right? I don't want them to know in advance what they're going to do, because that's not game like. And when you go to the gym and you do 10 reps per your example of dribbling, and then you do 10 shots from the same spot, you know exactly what you're going to do. So there's no thinking. It's mindless. And we know that the game is not mindless. The game is mindful. And that's a huge challenge for coaches. But that's a big part of this for coaches too, is to, like, we want players to have a growth mindset. We want them to have this, oh, I got to get better. I got to do my reps. I got to have the Mamba mentality. But then as coaches, we're doing the same thing over and over again that don't cultivate a growth mindset or don't change a growth mindset.
It's you need to grow, and like, I'll be here while you're growing, not growing. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Let's take one more quick break here, fellas, and then we'll kind of get into some really practical stuff kind of to finish the episode.
Hey basketball fans, Coach Dave Love here with an exclusive offer just for you, my personalized video shot analysis. Imagine having an NBA shooting coach analyze your shooting form, just like I do for the pros. That's exactly what you'll get with my video shot analysis. Here's how it works. You send me a video of your shot and I'll break it down frame by frame. I'll pinpoint your strengths and identify the areas of improvement and give you tailored advice to take your shot to the next level. You'll receive a comprehensive analysis designed just for you. Whether you're a beginner or an aspiring pro, my feedback will help you shoot with confidence and precision. It isn't just feedback, it's a game changer. With my video shot analysis, you're not just practicing, you're evolving, and every single shot counts. Ready to transform your game? Visit CoachDaveLove.com/store to learn more and get started. That's CoachDaveLove.com/store and look for video shot analysis.
All right, welcome back. Both of you drawing up ATOs right now. Coach Dave, you're going first. 24 up on the thought clock. Give us a concise look at something important that we just talked about in the last segment. No pressure.
Usually the hard part of a skill isn't the physical skill, it's deciding and reacting to what skill needs to be used in the situation. So don't remove the skill from the situation, which is basically it's just a simple way of saying don't remove the action from the perception.
Great.
I think that was one of my best ATOs I've ever done.
Sweet.
Concise.
Frame that one.
Okay. By the way, coaches, if you listen to this, you should be doing this activity with your players. Like, this is something I do every session. And this was amazing. Like, I did this again with elite players, with the NBA people there and stuff. And they're like, oh, I'm like, really? Like, we don't check for understanding in a way other than asking, hey, do you understand? Like, it was like literally before we move on, somebody asked me a question. Okay, even more so. I'm going to divide you into 4 different groups. You communicate for 15 or 24 seconds, which is great in your example here. 24 seconds, then come back to me with a question. We want them to engage with us. We want them to interact. So this is brilliant. Anyways, my 24-second summary, identify your coaching ego, and then seek out information that contradicts your philosophy intentionally. And I gave you an AI prompt to do that. And then experiment with micro changes. And then seek feedback and understanding about what that is. And don't ask them, hey, did you like that? That's like an open-ended question. And maybe it's just the day they don't like it. I know I'm going beyond 24 now, but don't just ask that. Just, how did that feel? Yeah, there you go. Whole time.
Okay.
I was going to be good. And then I said, I wanted to clarify for that for coaches, because it's not just, do you like it? No, like, I mean, do you like me? Like, it seems like such a bad question to ever ask anyone, because I don't really want the answer. So ask questions when you want the answer.
Okay, so there's so much that we just went through there. We have about 11 minutes until the hard out here. We've done a number of practical examples, but can we keep kind of going down this road, because there's all kinds of opportunity in the skill acquisition concepts, in sort of the broader concepts that we've kind of touched on, we do a segment called Hammer Action in this last segment of the pod where we hammer home some actionable items. And so, Dave and Chris, let's keep it in the theme and let's keep it in the practical side of things. Sprinkling in, can you give us some good examples of short-sighted games that you've used or items that you've used with players? I love this what you're talking about with getting players to ask a question. I like, again, anything that engages them in the process, because that there's so much more growth to be had than me just being like, well, we're going to do Euro shooting again for 2 minutes because that's just what I do. You know what I mean?
Okay, here's real simple challenge for coaches. I love this question. And tag me, Dave, Matt, tag us. Let us know how this goes. You've got to tag us. Let's make us all active participants in this, because I think a big part of this is to find a tribe. Find a tribe. So we're your tribe. Let us be on your team to be able to help you make some of these micro changes. So here's your first one. Whatever you do traditionally now as an on-air drill, meaning no defense, unopposed, add a defender. So say you do some 3-on-0 fast break drill up the floor. Do the same drill, add a defender. And then tell us how that went. Obviously, what is it going to be? We've already referenced it. It's going to be messier. It's going to be uglier. You're going to think it's their passing. You're going to think it's this. It's the decisions. So you're stimulating the decisions. So coaches, do that with something that you do unopposed right now. And you all have unopposed drills. Dave gave you the dribbling example. Matt, maybe the 2-on-0. Instead of doing 2-on-0 screening to work on getting to the shoulder, add a defender to that, covering the player trying to cut. It's different things like that.
My actionable idea would be, and this is something that I took from Chris, is force a decision, and in the beginning, it doesn't have to be terribly game representative or complex. Start with just an either or decision. It can be either you do this or you do that. And for me, I do this with informed shooting, where I'll be the quote unquote defender, and all I do is I change my hip angle. And I think this was directly stolen from Chris. And if I change my hips to this direction, where's the advantage? Find the advantage and then give me ABC or slow to quick from there. Okay, now we're at a different spot on the floor, so we get a little bit of variability. And same thing, you've got to react, but I'm going to change my hips in a different way. And then usually I will add a wrinkle to it without telling the player. That I'll start with just like, I'm going to change my hips so that I'm forcing you left or forcing you right. But then after a couple of reps, not very many, I'll change my hips where it seems like I'm forcing you right, but I've overplayed it. And now the advantage that used to be going left is actually back to the right. And I didn't tell the player I was going to do it. They just had to react to, as a basketball player would. Okay, they overplayed. Where do I go now?
Love it. And I'll jump on with that. Mix things. Like, why do they have to do 10 reps of the same thing? Why can't we mix those 10 reps in with 10 other things? And that mixing, it's, again, go research it. This is how we learn, actually. Not through the repetitions. We learn through the retrieval that leads to retention. So it's retrieval practice that we're trying to stimulate. We don't learn through repetitions. We learn through retrieval. So it's like on the verge of forgetting is actually when I'm remembering. So I want to stimulate that part of it. So if I'm going to do, okay, we're coming off a ball screen, I'm going to take 2 dribbles off the ball screen, shoot. And I do 10 reps of that. And then I do 10 reps of reject the ball screen. And then I do 10 reps of shoot behind the ball screen. Even if there's not a defender, just mix those all together that you don't. And better to that is what Dave gave you, which is a cue, a visual cue. The game is not verbal. The game is visual. There's some type of visual cue that stimulates you to, okay, 2 dribbles shoot versus 2 dribbles reject versus 2 dribbles shoot behind the screen. And that could be a guided coach defender. So that helps you even more practically. And those are the simplest examples. By the way, I'm pro trainer, I'm pro coach, I'm pro everyone, just like we all are here. This is our tribe where we can challenge each other. We can be safe and we can say we can do better. And look, we have to do better. We have to do better. We're going to get passed by so many coaches that are just figuring this out. And Dave, Matt, I don't know about you guys. young coaches, man, if I was like still in my coaching career, I'd be scared of young coaches, because some of these people are coming in with these, like, not having fully formed ideas from the past, and they are coming in with an understanding of constraints, and people are talking to me about ecological dynamics and stuff, and it's freaking exciting. But man, some coaches should be scared. If you don't change, you're going to get passed. You're going to get passed pretty quickly, and that's just the way it's going to go.
Strong beliefs, loosely held, is something that I think applies in a lot of areas of life. But in this area where so much of what we know and what we do is influenced by our previous experience, like, I love a drill because my college coach did this drill. And the drill is actually not really anything. I love the drill because we did it 100 times. That's our experience informs.
It's what you're comfortable with.
100%. So strong ideals, loosely held, is a way that we can all get better. And being open, like you said, Chris, we talked about this in the last podcast we did. Be curious, not judgmental, is like it's Ted Lasso, whatever. You can say what you want. That is a formative ideal in my life, or I try to make it a formative ideal in my life, because we're just better people when we can approach things with that kind of mindset.
Just jumping on that quick, isn't life more fun when you're curious?
Come on.
Isn't it? Like, I tell my daughters all the time, just as life lessons, it's like, look, I know you're struggling, or I know you're a little bit depressed, or I know you're a little frustrated. Hey, but what are you curious about? Because look, to me, life is all about curiosity. And there's got to be some things that you're curious. Hey, you're struggling? Well, what are you curious about getting out of this? That type of things. And it really does shift mindsets.
And it's okay to have no idea what's going on. Like I've gone through my analytics wave that I'm in the midst of right now, and I'm constantly talking to people about drag forces and Magnus effects and like mathematical. I don't know what an indice is. People keep talking about indices, and I don't know what they mean. But the more I talk about it, the more I understand. And you just have to be uncomfortable in the beginning and be okay with that.
Fellas, this has been awesome. This is the exact opposite of our last podcast, in that this was almost entirely unstructured, but I still think there's so many valuable nuggets strewn kind of throughout the topic. So, Dave, anything else you want to hit really quickly before I sign us out?
No, I want to make sure that Chris Oliver comes back in about 6 months or so, or less. I'm open to less.
Yeah, no, guys, we have great conversations, and I'm grateful. I can't tell you how many people reached out to me after our shooting one, and just, it was an opportunity for both of us to kind of share ideas beyond the norm and to challenge traditional thinking, and that's really the point. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
And for me and the listeners who get to be a fly on the wall, and I'm lucky enough to get to contribute a very little amount, this is an incredible experience for me to learn from both of you, as always. Listeners, we really appreciate you. If you want to track down Chris Oliver, Chris, where can the people find you?
Basketballimmersion.com, at bball immersion on Twitter, and at Coach bball immersion on Instagram, probably the easiest places. But I'm not hard to track down nowadays, and that's beautiful. And Dave, you're not either. And congrats on all your success. And you're really making a huge impact, Matt, with this podcast as well. I get so many people do reference it to me. So it means the right type of people are listening to it, and it's only going to continue to grow. So that's the other part of all this, coaches. Stick with itness. It doesn't happen in one day, does it? The podcast doesn't grow in one day. It doesn't grow in 1 week. It grows over time. And you guys are planting your trees, and congrats on that.
That's very, very kind of you, Chris. Coach Dave Love on Instagram and Twitter. Give me the newsletter pitch, Dave, real quick.
Yeah, go to CoachDaveLove.com and sign up for the newsletter. A boatload of free information coming your way.
And I am Matt Robertson on LinkedIn, at Coach Matty Rob on Twitter. As always, thank you so much for sticking with us to the end. We really appreciate your time. Please rate, review, subscribe, tell a friend. It all really helps. And you can see us next week.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Coach Dave Love Podcast. To stay up to date with our future episodes, please remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to sign up for Coach Love's free shooting newsletter on CoachDaveLove.com And be sure to follow him on social media. You can find him at Coach Dave Love.